Welcome to the first recording of our regular YouTube series at the Northwest Business School for 2019. Today I've got two special guests. Firstly, I've got the Premier of the Northwest, Mr. Mokgoro, and secondly, I've got the Director of the school, Professor Fulu Netswera. Professor Mokgoro was invited to open the summer school of the business school for 2019, and he presented a very interesting lecture on the issues and the challenges of managing complex systems such as provincial government. Premier, you started your discussion by explaining to the students the interaction between complicated decisions and managing those complicated decisions, and you spoke especially about systemic thinking. Can you elaborate a little bit on that complex problem that you started off with?
Yeah, the essence of what I was getting at was to highlight the reality of our work environment, day-to-day reality, and that there are various types of complexities that we have to contend with, and that is just fact. It is not theory, it is just fact. And the idea was to say we need to be more careful when we place, when we promote, to make sure that we get people who are fit for purpose, because it is important that our preparation at business schools, at postgraduate programs, that we do not leave out this kind of element. I think historically, and at many universities, you have an approach to learning and teaching that almost still assumes, it may not be explicitly stated, but assumes that the world is simplistic, it is linear, it is predictable.
And you introduced the concept of VUCA in that explanation.
Exactly.
Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Yes.
And then went on to explain how these things in a practical way land on your desk every day.
Exactly. The nature of the issues that I deal with on a daily basis, without exception, are about resolving communities' problems, community service delivery problems. For us to be effective, for us to be successful in bringing some joy to our people, it is critical that we understand from a cost-effective, relationship perspective, that we understand the issues that are put before us, so that our interventions should be better informed.
Fulu, in the business school, we're also dealing with business and communities, but it seems to me the Premier added like a third level to that nexus, saying there's government, business, and communities. Are we doing enough to explain, to teach about these complex nature of societies? Because every business is situated within a society.
I think you will agree that whatever we do as academics and in academic spaces is usually and always not sufficient. We're always lagging behind in terms of innovation, so we're trying to do a lot of catch-up. But I think theoretically, we have configured our challenges to be of such a nature, in that we deal with the world of corporate business, we deal with the world of community, and the world of academia, which is why in our curriculum and in the way that we organize ourselves, we have got those three legs upon which we stand. We try, but we are not always efficient. We are not always successful. If you look at the way we tackle community engagement, it's generally and usually ad hoc. So we need that intersectoral way of bringing together solutions to challenges.
Now, Premier, in the academic environment we're in, our outputs are typically research, mostly. We teach, we do research, we do community engagement, but very often we measured on research. From where you're sitting, what would you say should be on our research agenda? What is it that we can do to make your job easier or more fulfilling?
The one area, given the nature of the issues that we deal with, is really around what are the capacity elements we should be looking at, just so that we have a more active citizenry, a citizenry that understands its rights as enshrined in the Constitution, and actually in a very active way asserts those rights. I believe very strongly that this would enhance a more meaningful partnership, which also really puts some challenge on the public servant. Many years ago, when I was a student in the US, one of the things that we were studying in our policy class was the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And one interesting thing that came out was that the intended beneficiary of the Civil Rights Act were rather too passive in asserting what the Civil Rights Act was providing to them. And that was a measure of inadequate implementation of that kind of policy. So similarly, in our context, the Constitution provides what are those capacity elements we should be building on, so that the community is empowered and they are more active in engaging. I think in the process, we would also be able to achieve a better public servant. Another area of research that I would highlight, as a result of unfortunate underperformance, corruption in the public service, you would recall that national government saw it necessary to put the entire administration
Under administration.
Yeah, all departments under administration. And it is very important. Again, you know, if I borrow from systems thinking, what are the cause-effect relationship between that are at play in this intervention? Are we succeeding? Is the situation going to get better? As far as I can recall, nobody is really doing any serious research around this.
I think you're right. Fulu, can I give you the last part of this first section? How would you take what the Premier just said, converting it into like a research agenda or program for the business school?
I think one of the big questions we ought to be asking ourselves is, what does administration really mean? So that we are able to put it in concrete terms, that these are the conditions under which administration can happen, and these are the steps that should be undertaken in order to get out of administration, and whether or not administration has worked and yielded any positive results.
Because there are two types of administration currently at play.
Exactly. So a lot of work needs to be done. It's not just a process of government that we should go through, but I think academia should be equally very involved to thoroughly interrogate the entire process and the outcomes of the process, so that the mistakes that are that happens here in this administration don't necessarily happen with another administration at another province in the future.
Well, thank you both for the very frank discussion we had. In the second part of this interview, we're going to delve deeper into the politics and the issues of the Northwest Province as such. Thank you very much.